state of Maine. I mean, you guys just have a pretty state. It is just spectacular, and I appreciate whoever arranged for it to be in the 50s today. Please give it up for your next governor, Michaud. A legendary son of Maine, Senator George Mitchell. We've got your former governor, John Baldacci, is here. Your Congresswoman, Shelby Pingree, is here. We got your mayor, Mike Brennan, is here. And while he can't be here tonight, I want to say a few words about Senator Angus King. Angus is proudly independent. He's not focused on what's best for a political party. He's focused on what's best for the people of Maine. He's a gentleman and brings stability down to Washington, and I agree with what he said yesterday, that it's time to come together around Mike Michaud as our choice to lead Maine forward. But that depends on what happens in the next 5 days. 5 days. 5 days from now, you get to choose a new governor. So you're going to have to grab your friends, you got to grab your classmates, your co-workers, you got to knock on some doors, you got to make some phone calls, you have to visit mainedems.org and find your polling place. You've got to take everyone you know to cast a ballot for Mike Michaud. Let me tell you why. You know, George Mitchell talked about this. Mike talked about it. I'm proud to be a Democrat in part because of the traditions we represent. And one of those traditions is the idea that everybody who works hard and takes responsibility in this country should be able to make it. And this country has made real progress since the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes. Over the past 4.5 years, in part because of some really good work by people like Mike who didn't forget where they came from and understood what it means to work hard. Over the last 4.5 years, American businesses have created more than 10 million new jobs. This morning we learned that our economy grew at a strong clip over the summer, even stronger than we'd expected. In fact, over the past 6 months, our economy has grown at the fastest pace in more than 10 years. So the truth is, America's outpacing most of the rest of the world. We've created more jobs here in the United States over the last 6 years than Japan, Europe, and all of the advanced nations combined. We've made real progress. But what's also true is that the gains of a growing economy haven't been fully felt by everybody. You know all too well that Maine lags behind the rest of New England when it comes to job growth. Over the next week, you've got a chance to change that. You have a chance to choose a governor who doesn't put political ideology first. You have a chance to choose a governor that puts you first. And that's why it's so important. Mike learned the meaning of hard work by following in his dad's footsteps and his granddad's footsteps and punching a clock every day at the Great Northern Paper Mill. And when sludge from that mill started to leak into the Penobscot River, Mike decided somebody had to stand up for families like his. So he ran for the state legislature. Not because he wanted to be somebody, but because he wanted to do something. Because he wanted to fight for somebody. He didn't care about fancy titles. He wanted to deliver for his neighbors and his friends and his family. And he helped clean up that river. And Mike's been fighting ever since for ordinary Mainers. That's who he is. As just state Senate president, Mike brought Democrats and Republicans together, balanced Maine's budget, gave workers who were struggling a hike in the minimum wage. In Congress, he worked across the aisle to pass a VA reform bill earlier this year, fought to make sure Maine's rural veterans get the health care that they've earned. He's fought for job-creating investments throughout this state. He's helped make sure military families, our soldiers, are equipped with American-made athletic footwear. Like the kind the folks turn out at New Balance right here in Maine. He's fought for the investments in the kind of clean energy from the wind and the sea that's already creating good middle-class jobs for Mainers. And if he had been governor over the last 4 years, there had been $120 million of extra investment right here in Maine on clean energy. Apparently your current governor doesn't really believe that windmills work. Which I thought was pretty interesting. I hadn't heard that one. So that's why I like Mike. He wakes up every day fighting to make sure Mainers see their hard work pay off. Making sure that responsibility is rewarded. He fights to make sure every kid, every worker across the state gets the same chance that he had. In fact, an even better chance, because he believes, like I believe, that America is a place where no matter what you look like, where you come from, what your last name is, who you love, you can make it if you try. And that's what this election's all about. When you step into the voting booth, you make a choice, and it's not just a choice between candidates or parties. It's a choice about your vision for America. It boils down to the simple question, who's on your side? Who's expressing the values you care about? Who's going to fight for your future? That's a smart crowd. Look, Republicans are patriots. They love this country. They love their families. There are all kinds of good people in the Republican Party, but they've got some bad ideas. Which is okay. I mean, there are a lot of people I love. I got a bunch of folks in my family who've got bad ideas. I love them. But I don't want them in charge of stuff. Like a broken record, they just keep on offering the same tired theories of the economy that we know haven't worked. In fact, that have undermined the middle class. More tax breaks for those at the top, fewer investments in things like education, looser rules for polluters and credit card companies, a thinner safety net for folks who fall on hard times. We've tried things. We tried those things before I got in office, and you saw how it turned out. We know those ideas don't work. So Mike's got a different vision for what the future looks like. And I think most of you do too. And it's a vision rooted in our conviction that in America, prosperity doesn't trickle down from the top. Prosperity grows from a rising, thriving middle class. It happens because we build ladders for people to get into the middle class. We think the economy grows best when it works for the many, not for the few. And that's what Mike believes. He believes it because that's his experience, that's his life. That's what he knows. He's seen it. He's not trying to cut taxes for folks who don't need it. He's trying to build the main economy from the middle class up. He knows that ideas should be judged, not by whether they're Democrat or Republican, but whether they work. And here's what we know works. We know that in this country, education is not just the key to economic growth, it's the best path into the middle class. So Mike's not running to tell parents that if you can't afford private schools, tough luck. I mean, think about that. Maine? He's trying to invest in our public schools, bring down the cost of higher education, make college a reality for more people. That's what Mike believes. Mike believes in access to affordable health care, that it's not a privilege, it's a right. Running to block hard-working Americans from getting health insurance just because it doesn't fit your ideology. He's trying to do what 9 Republican governors have already done. He's trying to do what Democrats and Republicans here in Maine have already voted to do 5 separate times. Expand access to Medicaid because it's good for our people. It makes sense for state budgets. That's not a red or blue issue. That's an American issue. Why wouldn't we want to make sure everybody has a chance to get decent health care? Sometimes issues are complicated, and then sometimes issues are simple. And let me tell you, if your choice is between somebody whose platform is don't let people get health care, and let's make sure people have health care and aren't going to emergency rooms, and it won't cost the state money because the federal government's helping, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want people to be healthier? Mike believes that in America, nobody who works full-time should have to raise their families in poverty. Which is why Michaud would never veto a $1.50 an hour raise for Maine's lowest income workers. He knows that can be the difference between a hard-working mom or dad being able to pay the bills and keep a roof over the heads of their kids. Use the governor's office to side with corporate interests at the expense of working families. Mike's running to give Maine a raise because he understands that if somebody who right now is making $14,000 a year working full time starts making $15,000 or $16,000, they're going to spend that money. And if they spend that money, then the businesses have more customers. And if businesses have more customers, then they make more profit. And they make more profit, they hire more workers. And everybody benefits. And it's the right thing Mike Michaud believes America's stronger when women are full and equal participants in our economy. Earlier this year, Republicans in Washington said no to a national fair pay law. Don't boo, vote. Yeah, this is a solvable problem. One of the Republicans running for national office, running right now, he's running right now. I'm quoting here. He said, "You could argue that money is more important to men." That's what he said. I'm not kidding. Now, women, let me just ask you, was he speaking for you? Do you agree with that? Look, if we're going to strengthen the middle class for the 21st century, then we need leaders from the 21st century who believe that women care just as much about what they get paid as men care. We want women paid fair. It's common sense. Women are more and more not just contributors to the family budget, oftentimes they may be the primary breadwinner. So this isn't just a women's issue, this is a family issue. This is an American issue. Let's make sure women are treated fairly on the job. And while we're at it, let's make sure women control their own health care choices, not politicians. Not insurance, not their doctors. This is, like I said, some things are complicated. Some things are not. Treating women fairly, that shouldn't be complicated. Mad Men's a good show. I like it, but that's not what we need in Augusta or in Washington. When women succeed, America succeeds. And Mike is going to make sure the women succeed here in Maine. Who is going to fight for you? The biggest corporations, they don't need another champion. They've already got a lot of lobbyists working for them. You need a champion. Folks who are doing really, really well at the top of the economic pyramid, they don't need a champion. You do. Opportunity for a few, that's not what Maine's about. Opportunity for all is what Maine's about. And those of you who've seen Mike, who know Mike, who've met him, you know what's in his heart. You know who he cares about. That's why you have to vote. If you want something better, you've got to vote for it. If you believe working families deserve a tax break, not millionaires, you got to vote. If you want to invest in kids' schools, not ignore those schools, you got to vote. You think we should make it easier for young people to go to college, you got to vote. If you think you deserve an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, you got to vote. 4 years ago, Republicans won the governor's race in Maine by less than 18 votes per precinct. 18 votes. Those 18 votes could be the difference between an economy that works for everybody or just for some. Those 18 votes, that could decide whether 135,000 Maine workers get the raise they deserve. Those 18 votes could decide whether tens of thousands of Mainers are locked out of health insurance or they finally get the kind of coverage that allows them to take their kid to see a doctor. That's up to you. So your vote will decide the course that Maine takes. That's why it's time for you to come together around one choice, one candidate, who you know will fight for you, and that candidate is Michaud. Let me just say this. Let me say this. If you've come to this rally, you're probably going to vote. You might have wandered in here thinking there was a basketball game going on. And if so, I want you to vote. But most of you who are here, most of you are here because you understand what's at stake, which is why you can't just stop at voting. You've got to get involved. I'm asking you to go talk to your neighbors and your friends. Talk to one of the organizers in this room. Or go to maindems.org. Volunteer. Make some phone calls for Mike. Knock on some doors for Mike. Grab everybody you know. Get them to vote for Mike. This election's too important to stay at home. Don't let somebody else choose the future for you. I'm not on the ballot this time, and this is sort of the last election cycle in which I'm involved as president. And I know the hardest, look, it makes you a little wistful, you gotta, because I do like campaigning, it's fun. And I know, as I reflect back on the thing that I love so much about campaigning, is that it reminds me about the American people. Because you get to meet everybody from all walks of life. You get to meet young moms who are just valiantly working on behalf of making sure their kids have a better life. You get to meet business owners who take pride in making something here in America, providing their workers a decent wage, showing what's possible for some young worker who comes in and can move up the ranks. You have a chance to meet veterans who just render extraordinary service to our country and then come back and suddenly are critical parts of their community and giving back as first responders or as Little League coaches. You just meet people from all walks of life, and it makes you so optimistic about the American people. How decent they are. How good they are. How hard-working they are. How resilient they are. And sometimes it seems as if our political process doesn't reflect that.